All right, so I've been doing a lot of YouTube videos on basic stuff. So I've been thinking about frame building a lot again. I found a garage for cheap moving into. Been working on my website, frame building website. Please go check it out. It's cool. It's very slow. I'm working on about a page a week. But I'm titling this video, So You Want to Be a Frame Builder. It's going to be my intro frame building 101 video. And I want to talk about becoming a frame builder, what you need to know. This is really a perfect place for starting. I wish a video like this would have existed when I started. Instead, there was a couple old 70s books that didn't make a lot of sense and weren't very useful. There's the Pattern manual. If you can track one of these down, I recommend it. I got one of these a few months before I started frame building school. I read it cover to cover probably twice. It gave me a little bit of confidence. I didn't find it as useful as frame building school. I really never went back to reference it. I kind of thought I would. But really, I went to United Bicycle Institute, UBI, in 2010. And I got my little graduate certificate and my little worksheet book, which was absolutely fantastic. They do not teach frame building classes anymore. There are still some builders out there like Yamaguchi. I know there's a few other guys who are doing, like a week-long or a 2-week-long course. You can go out to their personal workshop and God, I just watched a video by somebody, Dave Bohm, I think. He has 2 or 3 people at a time and does a frame building course. I am absolutely going to offer small frame building classes for people in Portland again. I've done this in the past. Where to sort of do, like a couple hours after work or maybe a few hours on your day off once a week for a few weeks or whatever. Someday in the future, I'm hoping to be set up enough to where I can do a one-on-one or maybe one-on-two if you have a friend or something, but probably not a total stranger. Frame building class, UBI style, like do a real week or 2-week long class of 6-7 hour days, and put you up. Currently where I'm living, I have a guest room that never gets used, so I can just put somebody straight up, which would be nice. Ride down to the class every day, do stuff, get lunch, ride back, let them go explore Portland. That'd be fun. But I do want to do this online series. I've seen a couple other guys kind of try and do this, and some of them seem pretty okay. But I want to do it too. I want to talk about my frame building experience. I did the book, read some manuals. Couldn't find any YouTube videos back then. There wasn't a lot going on. There's a lot more now. YouTube's a good source. There's a lot of stuff, but it's confusing. Remember, I joined the Frame Builders Forum on Facebook. I think there's a Google group of it. And I did not find that particularly useful, and I'm still on there and still watch it and still don't think it's that useful, but you should be on there. Sometimes people use tools up for sale very cheap, stuff you're going to need. Sometimes guys will ask a question that you haven't even thought to ask it. You're like, oh, that's really valuable. And 10 guys will chime in, and 1 or 2 of them might be mostly right. You can parse together. The problem I had with the frame builder groups and forums where I'd ask a question. Noki, you are so loud. I would ask a question, and every single guy on there was an old, retired frame builder, machinist, and they're just like, oh, make it. Oh, just make it. What you do is you just make it. And that was their actual answer, because that is their answer. They are old guys. They already know what they're doing. They know what they want. They know what works and what doesn't. They have full machine shops. They really would just make anything they need. Is that the right answer for people to start now? Like I was in 2010 and like you are today? No. I don't even know how to make any of that stuff. I don't have any tools to make any of the stuff. That's why I'm trying to find tools for making stuff. And I wouldn't even know what I wanted the tool to do because I've never had the tool or used it. Like, I don't know enough to not know enough to even try and start with tools that I don't have. So making it is not the right answer at first. When we get to like the 200 and 300 and 400 level classes, going to be a lot of making it. Yes, you can make this. Yes, this is how you make this. Like we'll do some step-by-step stuff as I remake some tools and show you guys some tools that I've made. Because a lot of tools out there that are good for frame building are only made by other frame builders who realize something's good and made a bunch of extra to sell. Like I think like Sputnik tools and Anvil tools and Cobra tools. All these guys started as frame builders. EVT, all these guys started as frame builders and started making tools because no one was making anything useful or good. Most of the big companies' tools are not that fun or good. Like the Park Dropout alignment tools are my absolute least favorite in the world. Like they're essentially useless for frame building. They're very frustrating. I have some old VAR ones I'm absolutely in love with. Cyclist makes good stuff. I think he started out as a frame builder and builds tools now. So stuff's out there. It's few and far between. And I'm going to do a resource guide with all the currently available stuff, all the best stuff that's not really available, what you can still find, what to look for first, all that kind of stuff. And we'll do that at the end, or I'll definitely do a big page on my website, probably with this video, or another one just like it, maybe better production quality or something. And I'll have some printable, PDFs and stuff. Like, this is where you go find all this stuff. This is the list of things to get, kind of in the order of importance, but buy whatever comes up on this list cheap as soon as you can find it, because buying tools new is outrageously expensive. You might as well go buy a brand new car. But buying stuff used, you might as well just go buy a used car, maybe like a 20-year-old used car, not so bad. So I started at UBI, and I walked in there, and they said you didn't have to have any experience at all. And that was kind of true. I did do a welding course 10 years earlier at Lane Community College in Eugene, their auto body program. And the first 6 months of that was oxyacetylene brazing, which I didn't really care about at the time, but it was kind of interesting. So I learned a little bit, and I didn't touch it for years and years and years. Second 6 months was MIG welding and hammering and dolly work, and then the next year was more of that and auto paint, and then after that you go to TIG welding, which I didn't even bother to do. TIG's really cool. It's a great skill. I'm impressed by guys who are good at it and make it look easy. If you want to be a TIG welder for your frame building, then it's a very important skill. It's the hardest welding to learn. You should probably go to community college and start taking classes on every other kind of welding too, plus TIG, so you can get an idea of what it is and what it isn't. Like, when I did auto body school, I was there for a year, not really understanding what I was doing or why at all. Total waste of time, until I took the basic intro to paint class, and you had to learn what bodywork had to be like and why to make your paint look good. And then it instantly clicked. I'm like, man, I wish I would have taken this class first. I'd have gotten so much more out of bodywork. And frame building is that way too. You don't even know what you want to know. You don't even really know what interests you or what doesn't interest you until you start. So at UBI, we walked in, and day one, I think we basically did an overview of tools and talking about frame building and frame geometry basics, and asking for what kind of bikes they wanted to build, and general questions and stuff. And that's really important stuff, and stuff you need to think about. Like, what kind of bike do you want to build? Do you want to build one bike? Like, there's 7 people in my UBI class, and I was the only one who wanted to become a frame builder. Everybody else was there for the experience of taking the class, because I want to build one bike. So do you want to build one bike, or do you want to learn how to build bikes? Do you want to learn how to build all kinds of bikes, or do you only want to build the current is fad? Or I only wanted to build vintage touring bikes, like 1970s style touring bikes, and that's what I built. I brought in all my old stock Campy dropouts and vintage Mayfac Brazons and all my wing nutty stuff. A lot of guys only want to build mountain bikes. There's a guy there who wanted to build himself a 29er hardtail. That's all he cared about. He didn't care about the fork class, because he just wanted to build, for a big squish fork. And there's one kid there, he wanted just to take the class and do it the easiest way possible, and he built himself a track frame. I don't think he even built the fork. He's going to probably put a carbon fork in. No Brazons at all, so he missed out on a lot of important stuff. I built a touring bike on purpose because I wanted to learn everything. I wanted to learn how to do candy bosses. I wanted to learn theory behind candy bosses. I wanted to learn how to do every different kind of dropout and Brazon, and I wanted to build my own fork. And I would recommend you do that too. Even if your favorite frame builders like Breadwinner Cycles, who I love, they're local, and Tony Pereira from Breadwinner was one of my teachers at UBI. It was his first time teaching there, and I got to meet him and Ahern that way. Joseph Ahern is also an amazing frame builder from here, and it was his first class, and then Tony came in the last week because he was going to teach the next class as his first class. And I got to meet Toothless Gary Mathis, who's amazing. I still see him every day, or almost every day. He's always bugging me for parts or whatnot. I bought lots of tools off him over the years. I got to meet Ron, who's the president or starter or founder or whatever of UBI and UBS, United Bicycle Institute, United Bicycle Supply. They're wholesaler tools and parts. And I got to ask, I was so lucky, because instead of just having one good teacher, Ron was there to help walk Ahern through. So I had those 2 teachers, and he was there. Mathis came in to help and see what's going on, because he was the teacher there for years at Ashland. And Tony Pereira came in because he was going to do the next class. So I meet all these guys. At that same time, a couple other frame builders were having a garage sale. I got to go do some shop tour. I got to tour Ahern shop. I got to tour Ira Ryan's shop. He had the garage sale. Sasha White came out. I got to meet him and find out about him. Because you didn't even know. When I first started this, I thought I was the only person in the world who wanted to build custom handmade bicycle frames at the time. I'd never heard of anybody else. I had no idea. Come to find out there's 30 other builders in Portland who are like semi-famous, and probably another 50 or 60 are just kind of amateurs. But guys come and go real fast. So that's kind of the next thing. Do you want to build one bike or a bunch of bikes? Do you want to become a professional frame builder? Do you want to do it as a hobby in your garage? There are things to keep in mind. But yeah, look around. There's other guys out there, and don't think of them as competition. Think of them as people you can learn from. You can meet, you can ask questions of, you can check out their shop, you can steal ideas. I remember walking into a Ty-Cycle shop and just stealing ideas. The way he hung all of his emery cloth, the way he kept his welding supplies, his alignment table setup. Was like, oh man, like this guy's organized and smart. This makes sense. Tony Pereira, I followed him on Flickr, and he was showing off, things he made, but in the background I could see the tools he used to make them. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to steal his idea for how to make my own fork raking tool and my Brazing jigs, and so there's inspiration to be had everywhere for free. You might be someplace where there's no other frame builders anywhere around, but there are the frame builder forums. There's my website now. There's several other guys' websites. Look around and find them. Watch those videos. And all the videos are different. Everyone's teaching style is different. Everyone's learning style is different. So find out what works for you. So back to class that first day at UBI, I believe we drew our frame. So we figured it all out. We learned how to draw a frame. We got big rolls of like art paper, and you roll it out. And we got big giant straight edges. You draw a straight line across the bottom of the page, and that is your axle center line. So your rear dropout and your front dropout's gonna be on that line. You find out where your bottom bracket's gonna be. You usually just pick a spot, kind of in the middle-ish back. Pick a spot, and that's where your bottom bracket's going to be, and you figure out how much bottom bracket drop you want. It's one of the first things you have to learn how to do. And there's a zillion theories, different style bikes. Mountain bikes have them kind of high for root and rock and stump clearance. Track bikes have them high because you're on the bank of the track. And touring bikes have them low for a better center of gravity and comfort on long rides. You figure out your bottom bracket drop, and you draw out little lines. I'm going to say like 65 millimeters of drop. And you draw a little line, and from there you set like, what do you want my seat tube to be? I want a 72 because I'm doing a touring bike, but track bikes should be like 75, race bikes 73, 74. So figure that out. We put an angle finder on that flat line and bent it out and drew the big seat tube line. And what do you want your top tube length to be? And both UBI and like Andy Newlands, he does a torch and file website selling frame builder parts and tools for very expensive. And he's got a little bike fit calculator. And the UBI has a little calculator. And I think I've seen the UBI one online if they stole it from somebody else. I don't think I'm going to feel bad sharing it. I change it, I modify it. Their numbers are like for 70s race bikes. And it's not the way I build bikes at all. But you measure your body from like your wrist to your, basically like where your scapula kind of goes into your shoulder. And you measure, the same way you measure your scapula to know what size width bars you want. Because people always do theories on handlebars. You gotta be narrow to be aero. You gotta be super wide now for gravel. It's all a lie. You really need about that measurement from where your little bone goes into your little shoulder with your back straight. And then I usually do that exact size. Like I'm like a 44. I usually do 44 or 46. Usually that size or one size bigger for most people. Giant wide bars cause a bunch of problems. Narrow bars cause a bunch of problems and bike fit stuff. You kind of have to learn all that stuff too a little bit. That's a little trickier because bike fitters are just as much wingnuts as frame builders. So you kind of figure all that stuff out. You figure out your top tube, like 56 centimeters, go from that seat tube line across the page, the top tube line. You figure your head tube on, say, 73. So right where that 56 ends, I'd put my big angle finder and your big ruler, and you draw a line for 73, and then you basically have your bike. Now all you gotta do is draw in your bottom bracket shell, and use a little compass and little calipers. You measure that, you make a little circle, and you draw that line to where you want your dropout, 345 millimeters or whatever you drop out, and you draw your chainstay, your down tube, and your fork offset. You make your drawing, and it's cool. And then you cut and miter tubes to that drawing. Something UBI did that I couldn't stand was they kept stopping us every time. As you finally start figuring this out and you start getting the groove, they stop you and be like, okay, now we're going to show you this tool. Here's this giant $100,000 Bridgeport mill that it's going to cut your chainstays. Or, okay, go back to your drawing. Oh, okay, now we're going to stop you and go, this one's going to cut this or that or slot. And I feel like that was a nightmare. And unless you're rich, you really don't have a full-size shop to fill full of expensive machines. You can buy these machines pretty used for 12 to 5 grand, $1,200 to 5 grand, depending if you're lucky, and in varying kinds of quality. And you spend more money on the tooling and stuff. So a lot of frame builders have 6 or 7 of these machines in their garage. A lot of them have so many because I bought them for nothing, from businesses and machine shops going to business. If they have them set up, so one's always set up to cut your 72 degree seat tube angle. One's always designed to cut your 69 degree head tube angle. And they don't even have to change the tooling or move the machines or adjust anything. They go right to this one, right to that one, right to that one. And if you're a really good fast TIG welder and you have all these machines set up, you can build a couple of frames a day once you know what you're doing. Me, on the other hand, I do everything the hard way, and I'm going to teach everyone how to do it the hard way because that's the best way to start because it's free. And it'll really teach you some things you need to know. There's some guys with some of these fancy tools that probably couldn't do some of this stuff by hand, and that's wild to me. Because I think the average starter frame builder is starting with nothing, with $0, 0 tools and equipment, and not a lot of prospects for getting that stuff. Once you start looking hard for that stuff, it starts turning up. But you're going to start with nothing. The old guys told me, and they were right, the first thing you need is an alignment table. And they're few and far and hard to come by again. If you're in an industrial town or someplace you used to have a lot of machine shops, there's a good chance the scrap metal yard or junkyard or one of these machine shops or a wholesaler or liquidator or whatever, you might be able to find a big, old, industrial, flat machined surface table. You used to make them into cast iron with a bunch of big holes in them, the ground flat, and you can clamp things through the holes and do stuff. That's a good start. What I really recommend is the Brignelli C-channel surface gauge. He is out of them. He stopped making them. Last I talked to him, he had one left in stock. He's too old. He's in his 90s now. He's too old to build the carton and ship it. So if you're in Cleveland, Ohio, he might have one he'll sell you for literally 80% off. Sit in his garage, you can go pick it up. So might be worth bugging old Joe Brignelli. And you might be able to find it in town, find a machine shop to make you one. It is just a piece of C-channel, a big industrial building C-channel. And the top is just machined perfectly flat by machine shop. And then he has the hard part, which is the whipping post, which you could have a competent machine shop, fabrication shop build you. A few builders make them. Like Alex Medea, I think, sells them for $300 or $400. Sometimes you can find them used. I mean, my old business partner had 2 or 3 came across used. And you can drill a hole in that C-channel and bolt it in, and that way you can bolt your bottom bracket shell in and have your whole frame out parallel over that alignment table. So you can measure off the table to your frame. You can get old surface gauges and scratch gauges and starrets and stuff. You can find them at garage sales cheap. You can find them at sales again. Find them on eBay for $20 or $30. New, they're a couple $100. And you can come and go and scratch it off the seat tube by the bottom bracket shell and be like, okay, this is the height. Or you can measure it. You can come all the way out to the head tube and scratch all the way to the top tube or wherever. You scratch that seat tube out there, and you can see if it's bent way down, bent way up, level, and you can do some tweaking and lining. I also found the alignment gauge hugely helpful for forks. Forks have to be perfect. Frames can be kind of crooked and weird, and it's impossible to tell while you're writing. They start looking weird and doing stuff, but your first few frames, you have to worry about it too much. My old business partner, Mark, he never had an alignment table. He did things, he had the old Park FAG gauge you can stick on one side, touches your head tube, your seat tube, and then it comes out and touches your dropout, so you can check it that way. I watch old videos of the Jack Taylors, people paying top dollar, the highest end old bikes. Those guys just held them up to the light, to an open window, and they lined up their head tube to their seat tube. I looked it up and you can see that the gap at daylight there, see the gap's bigger at the top or the bottom or whatever, see it straight. So a lot of old guys, man, they just built by eye, things were close enough, they didn't worry about it, and you can really get away with that for your first few frames to try. But I like the alignment table. Your fork, on the other hand, like I said, has to be perfect. If your fork even slightly tweaked or off, one dropout's higher than the other, it pulls super hard in one direction, you will wreck it and break your wrist, and you can't put somebody on a bike like that. Forks are a trick. We'll get into those. There's a few tricks for them. There's a few jigs. I really recommend the old Anvil fork jig. I think it's fantastic. They're still around for $1,000, $1,200. I've seen them go as low as $7 recently. Anvil retired 5 or 6 years ago, and they're going down in value because a lot of new guys are building new, more expensive, more fancy stuff. I don't know if they're any better than the Anvil. They might be. But get some made by a machinist frame builder that's going to be straight and perfect and nice, and your forks come out good. I had a Brignelli fork jig at first. I maybe built a dozen forks, and I think I could not get one straight. Every single one was a fight. They all came moved. They all came out crooked. I was constantly messing with that thing to see like, why is the slot cutting it crooked? If I, hold squares and edges against it, I could not build a straight fork in that jig. A lot of old frame builders told me you only tack one dropout in, and you can fully braze the other one in and get everything in, and then you can fully braze the crown. You can come back when it's crooked, get that tacked dropout. You can break the tack, and file the slot a little bit more and bring it up, or pull it down a couple of millimeters, or whatever you got to do. You can also do less legit stuff, more sketchy stuff like filing the inside of the dropout where the axle sits. The wheels in there crooked, you can file a millimeter out of it here, then this axle comes up a little bit and gets your wheel straight, but unless you know what you're doing, unless you're real careful, you're gonna make a bigger mess than you want real fast. That's the learning curve, and you got to do it. Then I think on day 2 on UBI, we started doing some practice brazing, or maybe that was day 1 to the drawing day 2. I don't really remember. It was 15 years ago now. Get some junk tubes, get some junk frames from friends, from recycling, from the dump, or you can just go online and order some tubes, and we'll talk about that, where to order tubes. There's aircraft spruce is the number one thing I recommend. There's Wix is good too. There's some online discount metals that are not good. The tubes do not come to size. They're not worth saving the $1, a foot on tubes. Aircraft spruce is really the best. But you can get frame tubes, and we'll talk about that a bunch. My favorite is Frame Builder Supply. We'll go through all of them and their pluses and minuses and whatnot. And get real bike tubes. Bike tubes are expensive. They're custom made, chromoly, drawn, shaped tubes. They're expensive. It is cheaper to get some old dead bike frames to play with, or to order some tubing. I think we were just using some 1/2-inch, 0.35 wall round stock and some 1/4-inch steel plate that we're cutting fake dropouts out of and brazing to the stock. At this point, I don't recommend doing that. There's a place called Seaway in England. They're an old school website. You got to go look and make an email and cut and paste all the numbers of all the parts you want. Email the guy, and he tells you what's in stock and how much the price is, and mails it to you from England like overnight and for cheaper than getting it shipped from across town somehow. If you get small, heavy stuff, he tries to tell you not to order full-size tubes from England because that's crazy. But ordering all your dropouts and bottom bracket shells and braze-ons and stuff, he's wonderful, and he has the best prices. He's got little Ritchie dropouts. It's like $3.50 a pair. There's guys on eBay trying to sell the same dropouts for $50. It's crazy. So, yes, I would buy some cheap $18 stamp steel lug sets and some cheap $3.50 dropouts and $1.50 a pair fork dropouts and stuff from him to practice. And then I would practice. So you put them in that steel tube, cut that steel tube off, you drop those dudes in, and you braze and braze and braze, and then you hacksaw through and see how your brass looks on the inside. Did it flow out everywhere? Did it fill up the space? And then you'll get into doing stuff where you miter. I take a hacksaw, that tube, and hacksaw a little slot and come over. You measure that dropout, figure like, it's like 3 millimeters wide, and then come over and hacksaw, make another mark at 3 millimeters and hacksaw that down and break out the little tabs. So you have basically a round tube with the slot cut all the way through. Boop. And then you can drop that dropout in and get it to fit all nice, like a little rifler's files, little tiny files, and clean the edges and make it nice and square so that dropout just slides right in like so tight and precise. So it holds in by gravity. So you have to worry about it moving when you start heating it and brazing it. And I braze that. And you braze it, then you come down lower on the tube and heat it so the brass will fill that up and bloop, melt down in the tube. And you braze it again, bloop, so you fill it up a little bit. Use heat to pull it down. Wherever you put the heat, that's where the brass, the silver is going to flow. Ahern tried to explain to me like it's a paintbrush, like you're painting, but I never really got that reference. Using the flame to heat stuff up. And then do that. You're practicing doing dropouts. They're the easiest thing to do. They're nice and thick. You really got to spend a lot of time on the dropout itself, getting it nice and hot. Get the tube a little bit hot. Get that dropout nice and hot, nice and hot, nice and hot. Get it nice little starting to glow cherry red. Get the tube hot. The tube's thin. It heats up fast. So you really got to learn how to braze dissimilar sized pieces of metal. You come back and then you can add a little brass here. On the other side, and add a little brass. You want to do little tacks to hold it in place. You start doing all your heat and brass on one side. The whole dropout might go, like you're putting all the heat here instead of here, and the whole dropout might go, meow. Heat makes things move, and it usually follows the heat. So you're going to do that. You do some other practicing, like putting candy bosses on is the same way. You got your seat stays on the back, and you braze your candy bosses on, and when you're done, sometimes those stays go, whoop, they like bend in instead of being straight. So I know a lot of guys' tricks for that is once you brass those dudes in, you come heat the tube a little bit on the other side. Just add some heat to it so the whole tube's hot instead of just that spot, and it'll often go, go heat and whoop. On the little frame builders called it witch wanding. I've seen guys on the alignment table like hold set things. So I have like the chain stays there and like, oh, this chain stays down a couple millimeters. I can't fit my 130 hub in. I need it up here. So I'll cold settle, bend the whole stay. But I've seen guys with a torch come over and they know right where to heat it up and move the heat around over by the bottom bracket shell and watch the whole stay just go. It's like letting heat move it. But heat softens metal. It's called annealing. It softens metal. So I try and keep the heat cycles down as low as possible. I see a lot of guys just weld and stuff. You're like, oh my God. When you see a frame break, it doesn't break at the weld, it usually breaks next to the weld. And that's because that's the heat affected zone. You weakened it from doing the welding. So a lot of guys, that's why they make butted tubes. Like if you go to, your standard butted tube is like a 969 or an 858. What that means is the whole center of the tube is half a millimeter thick. It's 0.5. So it's half 1 millimeter. And then the last couple inches, it thickens up, not on the outside, usually on the inside, thickens up to 0.8 of a millimeter. So it's, 20 or 30% thicker, so it's 20 or 30% stronger. So when you cut it and weld it, you got a heat affected area and a stronger, thicker butted area instead of on that paper thin center section. So that's something we'll cover too, is how important it is to measure and cut tubes. Where you cut the tubes to weld them in really matters. You don't want to go, oh, my tube needs to be 51 centimeters and this tube's 65. I'll just, cut it all off on one end. No, both ends have the butt. I like to use as much as the butt possible on one side and then cut, a little bit of the butt off on the other side. Sort of depending where the stress is in that particular joint. So there's things to think about, there's things you've thought to think about, and there's things that you haven't thought to think about, and there's things you can't even fathom yet. Like known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns, as the saying goes. So that's the first step. The next step was practicing with lugs. So you get those cheapo lugs, and you get your tubes. You get like a 1-inch outside diameter top tube, and whatever your head tube is, God, I don't even remember, I should off the top of my head, 31/8 or whatever, your standard size head tube for 1-inch forks to go into. Get your standard size 1-inch lugs. They make standard, they make oversized, and they make double oversized. I think they even make bigger than that now. And then for modern mountain guys and modern all Philip Brazing TIG guys, they just use whatever size they want and they don't care at all. But with lugs, it kind of matters because your tube has to fit inside that lug shape. So you get lugs and you get some tubes and you stick them in there and you braze them together, except you have to get your miters right. So I usually hold the tube up to the drawing, sort of Sharpie it, what's going to get cut off. And I'll usually cut that off and leave in plenty extra. I'll stick that inside the lug. Sometimes you have to spend a lot of time filing and fiddling the inside the lug to actually get it to fit a tube right. Some lugs fit real loose and sketchy. Some lugs fit perfect. Some lugs fit real tight. You gotta file. Hell, lugs just file in the hand file for hours. I have a Makita electric, 1/4-inch drive die grinder now. It's very powerful, very scary, but you can get in there and in a few seconds and check, and in a few seconds and check, and you can get your lug size just right to your tube. They have to be a little bit loose. They say you want to put them on the tube and you want it to stay in place. You want to be able to shake it or tap it with gravity and have it slowly slide down because you need it to be able to flow that silver. Or old school guys for production would use brass, but really frame builders use silver. It flows like water when you get up to temperature. It's gorgeous. It's fun to use. It feels like magic. It doesn't seem right. It brazes at less than red hot temperature, so you use a special flux paste. And the flux you paint on and you melt all the water out and keep heating it, turns to glass. And you keep heating it and you'll see the paste turn to the right color. Then you'll see the silver start to flow. That's when you know you can put silver in. You can see the silver start to flow. You heat a little more and the silver will really flow and just fills up that space. It runs along the edges of the lines and it's just gorgeous once you're good at it. And just a huge blobby mess until you get good at it. So it'll follow that heat. So the heat, you don't have the lug hot enough, so the lug and the two tubes, and you gotta get it hot and get the tube next to it hot. It'll just go all over the tube and it's gonna stay inside the lug where you want it. So that's the next thing. We're gonna hand cut those tubes with a hacksaw. We're gonna file those lugs till they fit. We're gonna stick it in the lug. We're gonna trace the inside of the lug with a Sharpie where the tube's poking out so we can get out. We're gonna take some tin snips. You can get $10 or $15 tin snips in a good tool store. You can cut the rest of that tube off, and we'll take hand files and hand file the rest of the shape down to that Sharpie mark and then check it. And it's gonna fit a little wonky because it's a round tube with a C shape going around it. It's gonna fit a little wonky, and keep filing it and keep filing it until it fits like a glove or touches all the way around. That can be hard. Your first bike, you might want to make the top tube a 56. And by the time you filed it and cleaned it and filed it and cleaned it and filed it and finally got it where you want, you really might be like a 55.8 or 55.5. So you have to decide how perfect you want those miters and lugs. It matters a little less. If you're going to TIG weld or Philip braze, it really needs to be perfect. We'll do that, and we'll practice. We'll fill those lugs full of silver, and we'll pull that heat around. You do that, you'll cut them in half, and realize, oh, no silver came through into the tightest joint, the tightest little spot. And there's no silver in here at all. There's only some here, and the little blobs. And do that 2 or 3 times, and you'll get it, and it'll be pretty good. You just got to keep hacksawing those guys in half and hacksawing the corners, and really look at, oh, now I see the silver. Oh, okay, this joint, like this spot, really needs to be hotter. Another thing I've really learned about brazing is if you don't see it happen, it didn't happen. So if you brazing a joint up here, and you'll be lazy, and you can I can see most of the way around. I'll just go here, down here, and the silver pull, and I got plenty of heat on it. I know it's flowing. I know that joint is full. And then you pull it off the stand and go soak it in hot water to get the flux to all melt off, so you see the joint, and that joint's got a giant gap. Right where you were looking, it did not go in there. Silver is magic. It knows when you're looking, just paying attention to you. If you don't see it do what you want it to do, it didn't do it. I've never done the opposite. I've never been, it's really heat it and pull and heat it. Oh, there's a giant blob there. I got it too hot. It's never happened. It's not there. So you really got to get it to flow and go through. And I have seen some very old bikes, some old Raleighs and stuff. The crappiest old 60s and 70s, low end, cheap store-bought, not bike shop bikes that were just brazed so terribly, I would assume they would have broke on day one. And I've seen them, 40 years later with hundreds of thousands of miles on them, all the paint chipped off, and they haven't broken yet. I had a Trek that looked like it had 100,000 miles on it, and it finally broke on this guy, and he brought it in, and they put the down tube into the bottom bracket shell and tack welded it and forgotten to do the finish welding. And that bike was on the road like that for decades. So being a perfectionist is one thing, but don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, like they say. Do the best you can. If you did a pretty good job, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90% good job, it'll probably hold up. You can probably ride that bike for decades. It'll probably be fine. But don't put someone you love on your first bike. It might break, and I've seen a lot of early frame builders come in too lightly. I'm going to barely put any silver in the seat stays so it's sexy. I'm going to barely put any silver in this binder, and then the binder breaks off the first time after paint. You try and tighten the seat post up, or the seat stays pop right off. I've seen a lot of bikes with seat stays that popped off with barely any brass on, from big production houses, on bikes that have been on the road for 40 years, and from frame builders who have huge egos about being frame builders, and their bikes break because their brazing is terrible. They're all ego and no skill. So I really recommend working on that skill base, doing some practice. I know a lot of famous frame builders who say every single time they go to do their braze-ons, they get a piece of practice tube and a practice braze-on, and they do a couple to get back in the habit of it, to get that silver flow right, to get that feel every single time. Guys have been doing it for 20 years. Like, oh, I haven't done it in a few days. I'm going to get out there and do some practice ones. I never did practice ones when I was frame building every day, or even when I take a week off, 2 weeks off, and every once in a while I regretted it. Get a big old blob of silver on something that's terrible, and it's going to be punishing yourself for spending 40 minutes filing that one little blob of silver. You're like, ooh, if I would have done this on my practice tube, then my good tube would have been perfect, and I would not have gotten a blob, and I would not have spent all this time cleaning it up. But I also feel like, the punishment for bad welds is a lot of filing time. And the more filing time you do, the more you realize you don't like filing, and filing is a big waste of your time, and you just got to become a better brazer. I remember I did my first couple of Philip braze bottom bracket shells, so instead of using the big seat like lug, you get like a Philip braze or TIG welding bottom bracket shells is just a straight piece of tube that someone's already tapped. Usually the vent holes drilled in them as well. And you put that in, you have to miter your tubes in, and you Philip braze it. So the whole thing is just the tube sitting right on the tube perfectly, and you brass braze it. There's a bunch of steps to do in that. We'll go over all those steps. Like, you have to tin it just right and tack it just right and double check it, and you gotta braze in a certain order in a certain way to keep it from warping and doing weird stuff. And I got my first couple ones of those, and they were ugly. And I had a hard time getting heat in, like where the chain stays meet the bottom bracket, and getting the brass to flow nice. And I spent all this time filing this tight little corners. And I asked Ahern, I saw him, he had a bare metal bike at a handmade show probably in 2011 or 2012 or something. And I went, man, your fillets are just so smooth and perfect. Like, how do you get them like that? Like, you know, I spent so much time filing. I was like, oh, just braise it better. And at the time I thought he was being a jerk. And now I realized he was dead serious. He spent more time practicing brazing and really getting your heat up. And getting your brass to flow better and getting it perfectly smooth and really not being afraid of it. You know, be like, I'm not scared, I'm gonna burn stuff, I'm gonna melt my flux, I'm gonna drip my brass. Like, come calm and collected and just patience and practice, and you will get your stuff to flow really nice. You know, I've seen other builders in my shop, like I partnered with Mark Belladonna, and he would frame build full time, and I was frame building 20-30% of the time, and I was running the whole front of the house, doing the manager stuff, doing all mechanic work, doing the website, doing the emails, doing the phone, doing all tune-ups, doing all the flat repairs, and coming back and brazing and doing stuff where I could when I had time, staying late sometimes, and I just watched myself stay about the same level, and I just watched him. We were together for about 4 years, and I just watched his brazing double in quality and ease and cleanup time. You know, I come back there and check on him, and I haven't checked on him in a few months really because I'm doing other stuff. And I sit there sometimes and watch him braze. I'm like, oh my God, like you've got so much better. Like your skill level is just like doubled and then doubled again and then doubled again. And you know, mine's going so slow, so I feel like I probably didn't get that much better. But I probably doubled, but he probably like quadrupled or quintupled or something. It's like, wow, man. But he mostly did all the real straightforward stuff, so he was getting better and better at it. He was doing the lugged frames, and he was doing the seat stay caps, you know, and he was doing all the real straightforward stuff and getting good at it. Mitering his dropouts, and I was doing all the weird stuff. I like bizarre stuff. I like doing all the hardest stuff. I'm getting better at that. I like doing the racks. I was like pulling teeth to get him to get as into racks as me. But I like doing the racks with designing them, like mitering them. I'd make like charts so I could remake the same bends over and over again. I found a bend that I really liked and flowed, so I could, you know, instead of spending 3 days trying to get the rack just right, I could whip it out in like 5 minutes, like the basic platform and shapes, and then you just have to do the final tweaking and brazing. And I draw those up on the wall, Sharpie lines. I just hold the rack up and Sharpie it here, Sharpie it here, Sharpie it here. So you do the first bend of the first Sharpie, the second bend of the second Sharpie, like figure out like little production-y stuff, which is the coolest. If you've ever watched Ron from King Cage, the guy has tons of live videos of going to shows, and he just has 5,000 different jigs and tools, and he can just take a piece of raw titanium or whatever and just stick it in there, do this bend, and then you flip it over and it sticks there, and you do that bend, and then it flips over here, and it only goes one way because, you know, this bend's sticking out, and it goes there and does that bend, and he can make a bottle cage in like 12 seconds, you know, minus the little part where he welds on like little bolt-on tabs and stuff, but like, just genius, all this crazy homemade tooling. If you want to be a frame builder, you're going to have to get into some of that stuff too, because homemade tooling works the best and is kind of cheap and free. That being said, there's a lot of tooling I bought from professional machinists that also, you know, make the frame building tools, then it's fantastic tooling. And once you practice that a few times, you get to make your own frame from start to finish. We did all that stuff, and they give you 4 or 5, 8-hour days for it, and the last day was Friday. It was a half day. And that was your braze-on day, and you only had the half day. Most of the guys barely had any braze-ons. They have 2 or 3. I did the full touring bike, so I had braze-ons. And they're like, we're just going to end early. I'm like, no, we're not. You promised me we got to at least 4. You're teaching me how to do these braze-ons. I'm doing all these braze-ons. Like, I'm going to pay a frame builder. I'm like, no, bro. I'm making bikes. I'm doing this. I'm learning this. More than just having it on the bike. I'm learning it. I'm doing it all myself. So I did barely get my braze-ons done. I think Ahern stayed a little late and really helped me out. So I could get him to watch me do them and really walk me through it, so I wouldn't have to redo it or do it half-assed, come back to a second heat cycle. So I got all my braze-ons done, and then it's all reaming and facing and cutting, and that's a big deal. At the end of making your frame, you're gonna have extra chunks of metal sticking out of your head tube, extra chunks of metal sticking out of your seat tube, and you gotta cut all that down to meet the lug. Then you gotta face it with a reaming and facing tool, which all that metal warped a little bit from welding it. So you want to put these reaming and facing tools in that cut the inside so the headset cup will slid in perfectly, and they flatten the top so the headset cup will sit perfectly. Because if your stuff's not machined correctly, your bearings are going to sit slightly crooked, And then you have a hot spot on one side and no tension on the other side, and your bike's going to wobble, and your bearing's going to die really fast in the hot spot. So reaming and facing is important. You got to do the bottom bracket shell a couple times in the process. You do the head tube at the end. Same thing, you got to do the seat tube at the end. It's a little bit warped from that lug and from brazing your stays on. So you come through the 27.2 reamer, and you just take off, the teeniest little fraction of a millimeter of a mount on just those high spots. Just go all the way down, then your 27.2 seat post will slide in nice and smooth. Or if you're building oversized, your 30.9 or whatever, and they make reamers for everything. They make adjustable reamers, and they're outrageously expensive. I really like the Cyclist one. It's really hard to find now. There's a guy in France who got them for $100 the handle and $70 for the tool. I'm thinking about ordering one. It used to be like $50 that handle, like $30 that tool. I'm trying to see if I can find them from wholesale. I don't have them on wholesale accounts anymore. I got to restart them, so let's see if I can find somebody who's got that stuff in stock and we'll sell it cheap. Otherwise, I'll be ordering that from France and paying that $50 shipping and paying double for the tool when I want. But I need it. I like it. Get new adjustable reamers for $300 or $400. You really got to adjust them just right and understand them, and it's really easy to overcut. Aaron was telling me that he had an adjustable reamer he liked, but said sometimes you cut it and that seat tube's going to be, instead of 27.2, it's going to be 27.1.5, or it's going to be 27.2.2, or the seat post's going to fit real loosey goosey, or it's going to be way insanely tight, and I'll have to mess with it and try it again. So you learn your tools and your methods and your stuff, and we'll go over all of that in future videos. This is just a real introduction. So you want to be a frame builder, how much trouble you're going to get in. You have to buy them tools. I think that the park, I don't like any of the park stuff. It's the worst. It's the only thing available a lot. A lot of guys use it. So I buy like the old tools. I have a Cobra wooden toolkit. So they're the big case. They make all the tools for Campy as well back in the 70s. And they have the big wood case. People are asking like, I got asked $20,000 for one of those the other day. They used to be like $3,000. A lot of them are like $5,000 now. I got my Cobra toolkit for $1,000. Looked like it was used once or twice. Like a retired guy bought it. Used it once or twice. My old Cobra toolkit was really well used and still worked. Probably need to be sharpened. Andy Newlands of Torch and File, he works with local machinists to teach them how to sharpen those tools. So you can always check in with him. He can tell you where to mill your tools. And they'll know how to measure it, how to sharpen them correctly, and not wreck them, and get them back to you. It's like $35 a tool to get them sharpened. So it's not the end of the world. There are ways, and we'll cover all of that stuff and your appendix of resources that I'll do on my website, which might take me a few weeks or months to get up, and won't be always updating like who's where and what's what. But any really high quality, good bike shop is going to have all those cutters and facers, and you can pay them to do it for you. You can go volunteer for them, beg them to teach you that stuff. If you find someone cool, they might just let you do it for free so they can show you how to do it because they're cool, or charge you a small amount. Paying $5,000 for a Campy toolkit's really nice if you build a lot of frames. If you're only going to build one or two, paying a shop $50, $100, $200. I think I'm charging $2 now to do a full reaming and facing job on a bike. Paying that $200 2 or 3 times is better than spending $5,000 on some tools that you're never going to use, except for these frame builder tools. They don't go down in value. People are building modern bikes and oversized bikes. This vintage stuff, all these guys are retiring and dying off and can't ride the bikes anymore. And so some of this old 1-inch classic-y stuff really might go down in value soon. There's a real curve because all the guys who desire it are going to die, and suddenly it's not going to be worth anything anymore, and everyone's going to have it for sale because it's from estate sales. Maybe most frame builder tools I've ever bought, even buying them new, you can sell them for close to new, especially if they stop making that one or people are desperate. But anything I've ever bought used, I've been able to resell for at least that much or more. As desirability goes up, and the ability to get them goes down. So my friend Graham says his dad was a Schwinn mechanic for 40 or 50 years. He's been long retired now. He would say, tools do not cost you money, they make you money. And that's a good way of looking at it. Same thing with retail stuff. Like, I have to spend $1,000 buying all these tubes and locks, but then you're going to sell them all for $2,500. It's really making money, and you have to reorder them for another $1,000 and sell them for $2,500, and you're making money. It's good to keep that in mind. Don't freak out. If it's something like I love ISO disc bikes, I'm going to make all the ISO disc bikes in the world. Go to Cobra and spend $300 and get his really nice disc jig. It's going to work easily. It's going to hold your disc tab in place correctly every time. You're never going to weld that thing on wrong or crooked. You never have to pull one off or cut a whole bike apart after paint because you realize the brake won't set up. Like, if that's what you like and that's what you're going to do a lot of, do it. It's a good investment. And then you can resell it for close to what you paid for it in a couple of years if you have to. Other than that, the real starter tools are trying to get some sort of alignment table, and if not, you can use a piece of string. You can use that part gauge to start. Dropout alignment gauges are super important to avoid the parks. I really like the J.A. Stein. Even the cyclist ones are pretty good, and all the cyclist stuff is so cheap, and some of it's great. I did not like their frame alignment gauge. Like the park one's like $50, and the cyclist one's like $30. The cyclist one's made out of solid tubular. It's like a bar stock of steel. It's like a square hollow bar of steel. It's a solid square, and it's heavy as shit. And the park one's an aluminum C-channel. It is light. You can hold it in place and look at it all day long. Cyclist one, you're like, oh, this is like impossible to reading. It's so heavy and unwieldy. But most of their cyclist stuff I really like. It's cheap. It's fine. Sometimes you get good deals on eBay, but usually it's a bunch of people just trying to get insane 10 times top dollar money. Get friends with wholesale accounts, friends who own shops, friends who work at shops will order you something on the DL. Order your tools that way so you can get them almost half price. If you have to buy them, if you cannot find something you're sick of waiting and you need that park headset reamer or park bottom bracket taps, like that's what I did. Begged some friends to hook me up. Because if you're young and poor, if you're old and rich, just go ahead and buy them and support a shop, and that's great. But if you're in college and make minimum wage, like get a friend to hook you up. But once you build a couple of frames, you can sell them to your friends for basically wholesale. You want to give your friends really good deals because they can't afford them either. And your frames aren't that good yet. And they can put that money right back into buying tools and buy tools and buy tools. Little tools are the most important. Your little taps for clearing out if you braze stuff and flux and gunk and brazing material. And sometimes there's not machined well. Sometimes they warp a little from the heat. You need your little M5 tap for tapping your water bottle bosses and your fender racks, an M6 tap for some of your bigger, weirder stuff, seat post binder bolts and stuff. And those things are $3 or $4 or $5. And I'll show you Bike Fab Supply has all that stuff. They have good ones for cheap. They have the right size drill bits for only a couple bucks for drilling your water bottle bosses. But there are methods and tips and tricks for everything. I could do an hour video on water bottle bosses. I could do an hour video on rear dropouts, an hour video on front dropouts, and hour video on seat binders, on every single joint on the bike. Like everything's a lot, but this is your basic how to start, what you're going to do, and what you're going to do when you get home. First thing I did when I got home was I went right to the cheapo Harbor Freight and bought all of their cheap metal files, and half of them I love and used all the time. And then I started garage selling all the time trying to find good Nicholson files, cheap at garage sales for $1 or $2, and you find a few, and some of them you like and some of them you don't. I bought $50 worth of $1 and $2 files, and I'm using about 5 of them all the time, never touching the other ones. But I like big, crappy Harbor Freight ones. You can get those Harbor Freight tin snips for trimming your tubes to your lugs. When you're ready to build racks, you cannot use cheap rack blenders from Harbor Freight or Auto Body Supply Store. You have to go and buy high-quality ones made for bending hard stainless tubes. They're mostly made for a brewery industry. So you need your swage lock and your rigids, and they're $600 new, but you can get them all the time on eBay for $100, $120. I often find them on my local Craigslist or something because they're an industrial tool. Guys have them. You can get them for $25 to $60 locally sometimes. It's worth doing, but really to start, other than you'll need a hacksaw, a good stiff hacksaw. Those flexi ones will drive you nuts. A good stiff hacksaw, good high quality blades. You'll need an oxyacetylene torch and some tips. And you need multiple tips. Tips are cheap. You can go to any welding supply store. Every town has them and get more tips. If you buy your torches used, they'll come with tanks, come with regulators. Buy all the stuff new, it's way more expensive. You can when you fill up your tanks, you take them to a welding supply store and be like, I need oxygen, acetylene, I'm doing brazing. I do recommend oxyacetylene. Guys talk about propane and MAP gas and all this cheapy stuff, and mostly people just have nothing but problems with that. And they really don't know what they're doing. It runs out fast. MAP gas, you can't get things hot enough. Go buy a used tank. You can get a used oxyacetylene tank for anywhere from $150 to $400 with good regulators, good hoses, some tips, all the stuff you need to get started and start practicing. And then we'll do a video on what tips and stuff you need, how to set them up, how to double check them for safety, how to adjust your pressure and your gauges correctly, how to get your flame tip right, how to come in hot and fast, how to not burn your flux so things actually work. Going slow and too cold will wreck your life, even though it seems like you're doing it safer. Gotta go in hot and fast to get comfortable with it. So you practice. But this is where you start. Start looking for frame building tools. Get on. People always tell me, "Oh, I don't have a Facebook. I don't look at Marketplace. You get good deals. I don't have a Facebook. I'm not on the frame builder group." Those things are free. Just sign up. Facebook's stupid, annoying. None of the buttons work, and it's a lot of boomers and blah blah whatever. It doesn't matter. You don't have to like them. You don't have to be friends with anyone. You can mute everyone on there. But go get on that, like the Google group frame builder supply thing. Google that. Go on the Facebook and join the frame builder group. People put up good tools for cheap all the time. I've gone on there and asked for tools. The first Cobra kit, I think I paid $700 for back in 2010, because I went on that group and asked, like, hey, I'm looking for cutters and facers and any other frame building tools. I'm broke, I'm cheap, I need it. Some guy had it and he wanted $1,500 for it. I'm like, dude, I'm just too broke. Like, even after my student loans and my part-time job and all that, and my leftover money to live on, only eating top ramen, eating literally out of dumpsters and going to free food porches, food boxes and stuff. Like, I had $800 saved up. And he's like, I just can't do it. I got 15. And then like 2 guys flaked on him. It was annoying. He's like, okay, I don't think you're going to flake. I think you're real. So the guys are annoying. I'm going to do it. And he threw in an extra Hosan, like a fork thread cutting tool the kid didn't have. You know, it's amazing. And was willing to pack and ship it. A lot of guys will not pack and ship for some reason. They're just allergic to putting bubble wrap and tape on something, standing at the post office in line for 5 minutes. So I tell people, when you're ready to sell, you tell them, I will pack it, I will ship it, whatever you need, and you will get top dollar, because so many people just won't do it. And he packed it and he shipped it to me, and it came to my post office like 3 miles from my house. I had no idea. It was going to be like a 90-pound wooden case, and I had to strap that thing onto my back rack on my bike, all sketchy, and ride it home, and it was the best day of my life. So get down there and ask. And don't be afraid to ask questions. You can ask me. I'll answer things honestly. Like I said, if you go on the list, you'll get all sorts of people's opinions. Most of them people who don't armchair. We call armchair mechanicking or armchair quarterbacking. We'll have all sorts of opinions who don't do it. So their opinions really aren't that on the level. They're what they should be, not what they actually would be. Ask questions. Man, I'm the one telling you to ask questions, even though every single old guy has told me to make it. Just make it. Just machine that. Just turn on your lathe. Have a lathe. That's what I'm asking. And check out these resources for your frame building stuff. Like, some of these resources are amazing. All these guys are machinists themselves who make this stuff. I went to Andy Newland's once and wanted a special tool that didn't exist, and told him about it. He's like, I don't know, that's weird. It's like, no one makes that. No one can make that. And the next day he emailed me. He's like, yeah, it actually got me thinking, and it was weird, so I just went ahead and machined one and made it for you. You can come give me a 6-pack of beer for it. So I got my first frame builder tool from Andy Newland's for free. I had on my frame alignment table, it just had plastic handles. I dropped it and broke one. So I was using one side of the handle broken off forever. And I took it with me one day. So I tried a hardware store, and the hardware store didn't have what I needed, the right size handle, the right thread pitches. And we were going to Efficient Velo Tools to pick up, I think the headset press. He makes headset press. He makes repair. He makes the best stuff, and you will eventually switch to it, and you will be so happy you did. And it's so expensive, but it's worth it. But when I was telling him about that, I can't find this, but no one won't sell any extra ones. None of the hardware stores have one. He looked at it, he's like, you want a demonstration on how some of these machine tools work? And I was like, yeah. And he just got some bar stock and turned it down and tapered it down and drilled it out and cut the threads and made me and stamped it with his EVT logo. So he made one EVT tool handle ever for a Bergnelli alignment table for me, and that was the coolest. It's like, guys are cool, bike guys are nerds, bike guys like each other, they're helpful. It's a real good place to be for that reason, for that industry. Guys will hook you up, and the second they realize that you're on their team, you're part of the industry, they will hook you up way harder than if you're a customer who's annoying and they have to make money off of. Like, oh, you're cool, you're doing stuff like us. Like, I'll totally help you out or hook you up, or he made me that tool handle for free. I probably would have to pay a machine shop $300 to do that work. Like, he did it in like 10 minutes because he knew what he was doing. He had like 700 different lathes and mills all set up around his shop. He barely walked through his shop. He had everything just the way he liked it, everything set up. And eventually, if you keep with this, you will become that wingnut too, where you have every single tool and 6 versions of it. Like one version for one thing, one version slightly better for a different thing. And it's just easier. I think I had 3 different sets of bottom bracket taps and facers because I don't like changing the tools out. I had like 7 different grinders because I want a wire wheel on one and a grinding wheel on one and a flapper disc on one. You get that way because you just just faster, it just saves time, so it's worth the extra money. You know, I had one, like the bottom bracket, I think I had one with just the facers on, one with just the cutters on, one with the cutter guides had to thread in, so I hated it, and one with the cutter guides just pressed in, so I use that one all the time. Like, just, you figure out your own process as you go, what you like, what you don't, because you ask any frame builder anything, and they'll tell you there's 10 different ways of doing everything, and if they work, whatever way works for you and builds a safe product, that is the right way. Doesn't matter what Rails says. I mean, I've seen some people do some stuff that worked for them that was dangerous and horrible and sketchy, and frame builders just attacked them for it, and they were right to do so. They're building embrittled metal that had no brazing penetration. People were going to die riding those bikes. So it's a little column A and a little column B. What works and what's safe and what you like. So anyways, that's my video on getting introduced to frame building. I hope it doesn't scare you off. But if you're like me, every other frame builder in the world told me not to get into frame building. It's a huge waste of time. You can't make any money. It's hard. Go get a real job. And nothing they said could have changed my mind or stopped me. So if you're like me, go for it, man. What do you got to lose? Especially just to start out, you need almost nothing. Just make some frames. You just gotta do some practice. Do some practice. Stuff's scary. You're afraid you're gonna wreck your frame every 5 seconds. My first frame took me, my first frame built you by in a week. My second frame took me a year to build. Because I thought I had to have an alignment table. I thought I had to have this tool. I thought I had to have that tool. I was so scared. You know, well, how do I put the chainstays in right? I'm going to mess it up. Like, I'm just scared. I'm just scared of it. So I just stop and think and dwell on it and look at stuff. Come back and just do it. Just do it. The worst case is you can kind of reheat it and pull that tube out and throw it in the trash. Order another $35 set of chainstays. Remiter them again. Re-put them in. Like, re-tack them. Like, you can try again. My last bike, what I'm on now, I think I forgot to double check my head tube and brazed it in crooked, so I had to cut the head tube apart and heat it and slip it out of the lugs and braze a new head tube in because I was in a big rush. And the second I got that bike done, I got it all built up in raw metal for a test ride. A friend came up and tripped over me, knocked me over, landed on a rock just right at fulcrum and bent my entire rear triangle. So I had to learn how to replace the entire rear triangle. I got to cut all those tubes out and heat them up and sweat them out of the bottom bracket. Remake everything from scratch. Better, stronger. Don't be afraid. Do some repairs. Repairs are horrible. No one's doing them. They're not fun. Old cruddy bikes and rust and paint. But do some. Cut some bikes apart and braze them back together. Like 20 minutes of practice will make you 10 times a better frame builder right off the bat. Like, just do it. What do you got to lose? Nothing. Build a freak bike. Build a tall bike for somebody. I don't know. Just care more about your brazing than about your filing. Make sure you get your good penetration. Don't care if it's ugly and has blobs everywhere. That'll come with a little bit of practice, but make sure you got that good penetration. Make sure your bikes are going to be safe, even if they're ugly, even if they're crooked. And everyone you build, you're going to revise it and get a little better at. My first jig made all my frames a little banana shaped. I had to fight them and couldn't figure it out, and then realized the jig was slightly bent. I just had to cut a piece of back strap on it that was holding it. It was welded on the last second that warped it, so I cut that free, and then suddenly I built kind of straight frames. Like, use Sharpie. Sharpie is a cheap tool. It's the best tool. Cover everything in Sharpie. Sharpie mark. So if something moves before you braze it, you can see. If it moves while you're brazing it, I can see. That sucked out of the bottom bracket like 3 millimeters. That's crazy. Like, a lot of guys do pinning. They'll drill a hole through like your seat stay cap and through your seat lug. And they will take a little nail and they'll file it down to a square. They'll hammer it in. So it's like, progressively bigger as it goes into. It's real tight. So it cannot move while you're brazing. And then you just have to hacksaw off that little bit of nail from the inside and the outside, file it flush. Guys do that. Guys, I think like Richard Sachs or Belladonna, like some guys use no alignment table at all and pinned all of their joints. Just a couple of nails in every single joint. So if you look up inside nice old high-end frames, you can see the little sharp ends of nails sticking in through the bottom bracket shell and through the lugs and stuff. Like, it's cool. You can get away with very minimal dough to start. Build your first frame. Watch the rest of my videos, which I haven't made it yet, but I will. Watch other frame builder guys' videos, get a torch, and just start practicing. It won't make any sense for a few minutes. You'll watch some videos, you'll try again, and then it will make sense. Then all of a sudden it'll get kind of easy, and you won't be scared, and then it'll be kind of fun. And then you'll start getting good, and then it gets really fun. When you braze something, it comes out perfect. No burnt flux, brass flow where you want, no blobs everywhere. You know it's got good penetration. And then cool frame builders like me will like your post on Instagram or whatever and be like, dude, that's a nice braze. I remember the first time Tony Pereira told me, he's like, oh my God, that's a really nice braze. I did 2 fork tips and had I was like, that's really good, man. I was like, hey, thanks. It's been built for like 15 years, and you're like one of my favorite builders. That's really encouraging. To have someone tell you what you just did was really nice. And I know a lot of amateur guys from 5-10 years ago, and I follow them on Instagram, and I see some of their brazing now, and I say that every time I see it, I'm like, oh my god, that is so smooth and so flowed out and so perfect. Like, because I remember back when I used to give them hell about how bad their brazing was. Like, dude, not cool. It's so ugly. Like, I don't want to file it. I'm like, well, don't give this to somebody looking like that. You can either file or get better at brazing. You yelled at them enough. Tell them not to get lazy, not make ugly bikes, make pretty stuff. Try and make pretty stuff. And it'll get prettier and prettier all the time. So in video 2, I think we'll do it in my shop, which I have not set up yet. I'm hoping it'll be set up in a few weeks. I'll be able to start brazing in a few weeks. And maybe we'll go over some body measurement, some basic fit stuff, some basic frame design. And maybe video 3, we'll do some practicing, show you how to do that stuff. And maybe video 4, we'll start doing, specific joints and tying it all together. And we'll make some cool videos. I'll probably do all the other ones and maybe a better version of this one behind the paywall on my website because I have no money and I have to figure out a way to monetize this stuff because I spend all my time on it and I'm going to do it no matter what. So I might as well be able to pay rent. I know, dog. You want food? You want play? You want to go to the park? That's it. I got to go to the park. I got to take these dogs for a walk while it's still sunny and gorgeous. Thanks for watching.